Citibank is the largest foreign bank in the country measured by assets. Citi is also one of the largest banks globally. Jonathan Larsen is the man responsible for all of retail operations worldwide at Citigroup, and he's joining us right now to take some questions. Jonathan, thanks very much for your time. Great to have you with us here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Why are you here in Mumbai, of all places? Is India right on top in terms of importance for Citi?
It's certainly a very important market for us, and what's great is that the business we have here is doing very well. It's probably no secret that the global crisis period was a difficult period for us in a number of places around the world, including India, and we've got that pretty much 100% behind us now, and with a very focused strategy on segments and businesses where we believe we can bring real value to this market, we're finding that there are great growth opportunities here.
But I know for a fact that Citi and a lot of other private banks, what they were doing in 2006-07 and what they're doing now is, the focus areas are very different now, right? The market has also evolved. We had 7, 8, 9% growth rates. We're down to about 5, 5.5. How is Citi coping with it, and what do you see ahead in terms of economy and banking?
Well, we're in a different world, and I think we have certainly learnt an enormous amount from our experiences over the last decade in this market and elsewhere in the world. So what you're seeing from us now, I think, is a far more focused, disciplined, and value-based strategy. It's a fact that the cost to compete in our industry on a global basis has risen dramatically, partly as a result of increased capital requirements for financial institutions, especially global financial institutions of our scale, but also as a consequence of a pretty significant re-regulation of the industry on a global basis on many fronts. So what that means is that the threshold to perform is much, much higher. And therefore, for every institution, and we've certainly taken this to heart, it's essential that we know why it is that we're able to compete, what is the basis of differentiation, what is the value that we can bring to clients, and make sure that we're making sustainable through-cycle returns on everything that we're doing.
How's been your experience operating in India as a bank? Is it frustrating sometimes because of the regulations? Because bank balance sheets in India are one of the most regulated, right? 60% of the balance sheet is regulated, priority sector, CRR, SLR, all kinds of things. I mean, what's your view on that?
Look, one of the things that if you're going to operate in as many markets as we do, you have to learn to be very adaptable, and you have to learn to both deal with but also respect the regulatory frameworks that exist in different parts of the world. So we have learned to adapt to the regulations that you allude to, and many others, including the branching restrictions.
By the way, the new RBI governor is talking about deregulating some of those things and saying, well, priorities have changed, so maybe we don't need that much priority sector targets as has been sort of prescribed earlier.
And we certainly are aligned with that view and think that he and the RBI is very much on the right track with that direction. So, of course, we look forward to seeing how that transpires.
Do we see Citi sort of converting itself into a wholly owned subsidiary kind of format of banking here in India?
Well, there's been much discussion about that publicly, of course, over the last year or so. What I should say is that we have no a priori difficulty with becoming a subsidiary. We have many subsidiaries around the world and indeed in many Asian countries. So in principle, that's not an issue. There are models that could be more applicable and more helpful than others. One model that's been successful in places like Singapore and Taiwan, Hong Kong and Australia is to put our consumer operations into a subsidiary, but to allow our wholesale and corporate and institutional operations to exist as a branch as part of a global network. So that is one possibility that could be a helpful construct, both from a regulatory perspective.
But what's holding you back? What's holding foreign banks here in India from doing that already?
Look, I think it's a matter of the proposition from the RBI as to what the basis on which subsidiarization can be done on. Just, I think, evolving them to a point where they're workable for the banks that are involved.
Do you think some of those balance sheet restrictions need to be sort of done away with, and then it becomes
well, I think those
viable?
As I understand it, those balance sheet restrictions exist whether you're a branch or a subsidiary. So I don't think they're germane to this discussion. And I think the governor's comment is the right one, and hopefully we'll see evolution in terms of deregulation there as well.
What do you make of the RBI's focus on giving out new licenses? So two have been handed out. These, of course, will take time to roll out and build up, etc. But they're talking about on-tap licensing. So it's not going to be a once in 10-year kind of affair, but more frequently. There are already 60, 70 commercial banks in the country. Is the pie large enough for everyone?
I can't speak for those who might aspire to have a banking license here. We've operated here since 1902.
Right.
We have found India to be an intensely competitive market.
Right.
And I don't think India's challenge is the number of banks it has. But any measure to increase market factors and market forces within the financial system is welcome.
Right. But with a per capita of $1,500, right? I mean, is the addressable market too small and too many players are sort of chasing that? The solution is growth, right? At the end of the day. But well, that will take time.
We certainly look at India as just a tremendous growth opportunity, and we think we're just at the beginning of tapping that opportunity. So we are hugely optimistic, despite perhaps slower growth in the last couple of years for the economy. So we're hugely optimistic about the growth opportunity in India, and we welcome whatever competition there is, and we welcome the trajectory towards more of a market-based financial system.
The RBI is also talking about differential banking licenses, basically niches in specific credit classes, right? Banks focused on niche credit classes. How would that impact you, Citibank, and how do you see that evolving?
Obviously, we would need to see specific proposals. Our strategy is very much focused around the world on the top 150 cities globally. We're in 125 of those. In India, that translates to a primary focus on the top 8 cities in this country. We are in 14, but our primary focus is on the top 8. What we're interested to do is to densify our presence.
But let me ask you this, because you have a global perspective.
Yes.
Do differentiated sort of banking work? I mean, sector-focused kind of banking work. Has it worked? Are there models available in other countries which are a success? Because it's being done here in India.
I think the trend that we've seen is towards a fairly open banking system,
right,
towards deregulation, towards reducing restrictions on physical distribution and the like. And if you look at the economies in this part of the world that have the most successful banking systems, in general, they are the open economies.
Not industry-specific banks.
That's correct. So if I look across all of the Asian markets, I'm struggling to think of any markets where that's been an important paradigm.
So that'll be new here in India if it does happen. There might be other examples elsewhere, but they're not exactly successful, right? That's essentially what you're saying. Differentiated banking.
Look, if you look across the Asian markets, and I'm talking about from China to Australia to Hong Kong to Singapore to Malaysia, I mean, there are some specific niches, the Islamic banking, for example, in some of the...
bank for fisheries, for example, I think in Korea, and things like that. But
I don't think that's a construct of regulation. I think it's a construct of how that particular institution's been constructed.
Right. So what do you think? ATMs and internet banking has been a key trend in Indian banking over the last decade or so. Do you think that'll be sort of the defining thing?
Well, we're at an extraordinarily interesting point in the evolution of banking. So we're now at the point where digitization is really taking hold.
Right.
And to be fixated on physical presence at a time when all of us run our lives through our smartphones or through our internet connections or through our tablets, I think is to be focused on the wrong thing. Physical is still very important. We still need branches. I think clients...
The branches are getting smaller.
They are. So clients want to see that the bank exists in the market. They want to know, even if they never go to the branch, they want to know there's somewhere that they can go when they need you, if they need you. However, most people can't remember the last time that they went to a bank branch, at least in our target segments.
Right.
So those physical assets play a role. Our general experience is we're pretty good at putting value propositions and products and services together. I think we've got a very good reputation and a well-earned reputation for very good service,
right.
and we are really focused on continuing to make that even better. We really don't have too much trouble recruiting customers as long as we can make it convenient for them to sign up with us. So branches play an important role in that. They play a role in our wealth management business, in helping us to manage relationships, because that's still very much a person-to-person business and probably always will be to some extent. But increasingly important is our ability to recruit customers and build our business through digital channels. Today, 95% of our transactions happen somewhere other than in our branches.
Online technologies.
Online is the biggest, mobile's next, call center comes after that, then remote kiosks and ATM machines.
Fair enough. I want to ask you, do you have a view on the macros here in India? So we've had 9% plus inflation for 5-6 years now. And many believe that the only way to fix a lot of the problems that the country faces is to incentivize savings, right? Build out deposits. And because that has been going down. What's your view? Any thoughts?
It's probably a much more complicated discussion than we can have in a short interview on television. But first of all, we think there is grounds for optimism as we look forward. And obviously we're facing elections. I think there is a fair chance that we see, I think, a rebound in international confidence in India. I think that's going to help with foreign direct investment. It's going to help with fund flows. And I think it will help boost confidence for investment within the country. That in itself will not fix some of the fundamental issues around inflation, around current
do you think
current
sentiment will get a boost?
But I think sentiment's a hugely important factor, and there's a pretty fair chance that we'll see a pretty strong boost in sentiment, depending how the election comes out. So we're pretty optimistic in the short, medium, and long term. That's not to say there aren't some structural issues that are going to be very important for India to deal with.
But so you are in a real sense picking up from your peers and people in the industry that you interact with that elections are a big deal. Election outcome is going to be a big deal for, here in India. I mean, how that pans out, the outcome is going to be critical.
I'm very sure that that's the case. So what's interesting for us is that despite the fact that we've had slightly lower growth in the last couple of years,
right,
and sentiment has been subdued, let's say that, and there's certainly been an outflow of investment flows, and we've certainly seen lower FDI. Despite those factors, we've seen our business grow really very impressively. So India consumer, amongst our 36 consumer business, is in the top 3 growth countries in the world in the last couple of years. So that's an impressive status. And if we can grow like that, during the more difficult times, we're very, very excited about what we can do when things look on the up.
So there's been a massive slowdown in power infrastructure sectors here in the country. You're not exposed to those areas, but the focus of all financiers has been retail and SME loans, right? So what's your sense? What kind of rates of growth do you expect for these segments? I mean, SMEs particularly, where we are, if you talk to public sector banks, for example, they're reporting large asset quality issues in that segment, the SME segment. Is it because growth has slowed down and ability to repay some of those loans is going down? I mean, what are you seeing?
This is where we feel allowing market forces to prevail and allowing banks to make purely commercial risk judgments is a very constructive thing. So just last night, I had the privilege and the opportunity to spend some time with a number of our entrepreneur clients who run medium-sized enterprises, most of them globally focused. And you couldn't help, we had probably 15 people in the room.
Right.
And you couldn't help but impressed by the entrepreneurship, by the energy, by the creativity, amazingly the global reach of these entrepreneurial success stories. In many cases, founder-run businesses. So I have no doubts whatsoever about the spirit of entrepreneurship and the ability to actually create business opportunities with the right conditions, and very importantly, the ability to be globally competitive and export competitive in this country.
In a way, what you're saying is, from a bank perspective, it's about making the right credit decision. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And so, subsidizing inefficiency is not going to get you there. So the kind of clients that we tend to deal with and serve on a global basis amongst small to medium enterprises are the type of people I described, and they're the people who are going to help the Indian economy.
Jonathan, thanks very much for your time. Great to have you with us here. Good luck. Thank you.
My great pleasure. Thank you very much.